Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think we all appreciate having had the nominee's time and her willingness to meet with us. And I think we all enjoyed meeting her family. And indeed, she has a very impressive resume. She has worked hard to build that, but our concerns and our disagreements do lie with how she has addressed child pornography, how she has addressed her sentencing practices, her release policies, her work with terrorists, her work with agencies, overreach that is there, and indeed her immigration policies. And I want to talk a little bit about one of the exchanges that I had with her. I did ask her about the United States versus Virginia case. That was the Supreme Court's landmark women's rights case, and it did strike down VMI's male-only admission policy. Now, I'm not an attorney, but I understand from so many attorneys that this is a case that anyone, first-year law school, would be familiar with. They would know this case, but Judge Jackson claimed not to be familiar with the case, so I asked her whether she agreed with Justice Ginsburg in that case that there are physical differences between men and women that are enduring, and she refused to answer. So then I asked her a very simple question. I asked her to define the word woman. Wasn't a trick question. It's something that everybody learned in grade school science class. But Judge Jackson refused to answer. The fact that she couldn't or wouldn't answer that question speaks volumes. It tells me that Judge Jackson is beholden to the radical left that is teaching our children that they can choose their own sex. It tells me that she is more committed to woke progressive ideology than she is to common sense and the rule of law. And it tells me that she will not be able to decide with impartiality the cases that are sure to come before her as a Supreme Court justice. How, for example, will Judge Jackson be able to resolve sex discrimination claims if she can't decide whether the parties before her are women? How can she decide Title IX cases if she doesn't even agree with Justice Ginsburg that there are enduring physical differences between men and women? We recently saw a Ninth Circuit judge issue a written opinion stating that, and I'm quoting, "People of all genders can become pregnant," end quote. And disputes over biological males competing in women's sports are working their way through the federal courts. How can a Judge Jackson decide any of these issues as a Supreme Court justice if she is too afraid of the radical left to give this committee a definition of the word woman? Judge Jackson's refusal to answer my question underscores the dangers of the kind of progressive ideology that she endorses. In the time since Judge Jackson sat before this committee, Disney has eliminated saying boys and girls. The State Department announced you can select X as a gender on your passport. The TSA will implement gender-neutral security screenings. The left has slowly but surely stripped words of their meaning in an attempt to eliminate dissent. And the latest victim of this campaign is the word woman. Americans from across the political spectrum want a Supreme Court justice who isn't divorced from reality, who has common sense, and who will protect their children and their right to rear their children as they see fit. Parents live in fear of the progressive ideology that is being pushed in some of our schools. I hear from them regularly. But Judge Jackson's answer to my question made perfectly clear to me and to everyone watching that she will be a certain vote for government overreach in private family decisions. She has written, and I'm quoting her, these are her words, that every judge has personal hidden agendas, end quote. That influences the cases they decide. While that may not be true for all judges, it is of concern at many cases, and it is of concern that this is her view. This hearing, the judge's record, have made it clear that she will interpret the Constitution through the lens of progressive ideology. Her refusal to define a simple word, woman, is only one example of many. Another is her desire to make excuses for some of society's worst offenders. She has suggested that we are too tough on child predators, and as a judge, she has ensured that these offenders receive some of the lightest sentences possible. She serves on the board of a K-12 school that teaches kindergartners that they can choose their own sex and teaches them about so-called white privilege. And she has praised the now discredited 1619 Project and has stated that judges should consider critical race theory in sentencing criminal defendants. This hearing has revealed the extent of her personal hidden agenda, which explains why she is the favorite pick of some of the radical left dark money groups. But the role of a Supreme Court justice is to interpret the law, not to take up arms in a culture war. She promised the committee that she would decide cases from a neutral posture and that she would rule consistent with her judicial oath. While she may be sincere in that pledge, I still have concerns that her ideology may influence her jurisprudence. As I told her, her primary commitment must be to the Constitution, not progressivism. For those reasons, I am certainly going to vote no for Judge Jackson. Before I close, Mr. Chairman, I did want to address a point of process. You have repeatedly dressed down my Republican colleagues and me for asking Judge Jackson tough questions. You did it throughout the hearings, you did it at last week's markup, and you've done it repeatedly in the media, including before we even had a chance to ask a question. You called our questions vile, baseless, and imputed dishonorable motives to us. My colleagues and I expressed legitimate concern that Judge Jackson sentenced child pornography offenders to less prison time than the national average. Judge Jackson and my Democrat colleagues claimed that the probation reports justified her decision, so we asked to see them. It was a reasonable request, but you responded by insinuating that we wanted to hurt children, and you specifically questioned why I, as a mother, would take that position. That was a surprising comment. We want to make one thing clear. Questions are not attacks. Confirming a Supreme Court justice is one of our most important duties as United States senators. This is a lifetime appointment, and it would be a dereliction of duty to our constituents not to ask tough questions.